Hello and welcome to another episode of Soul Nectar Show, that show where we talk about all things essence, where we gather around the campfire and we share our stories of connection to that which is bigger than us, to the big mystery, to those synchronistic moments, to the mystical experiences, to the awe and amazement of the divine and how it connects us when we finally start paying attention to this process, to what I kind of feel like is a magical little door that opens up. And then life just seems to show up differently than it did before. I'm your host, Carrie Hummingbird, and I love having these conversations. I always learn from them. I hope that you do as well. And if you're interested in taking your own journey into your own mystical journey of the divine, and even if you're already on that journey and you're like, well, I want to go deeper, hit me up. Let's have a conversation. From my website, you can book a little chat or a discovery call, your choice. And that's carriehummingbird.com, Kerri, hummingbird.com. I love to go deep on this kind of stuff. I love the deep ocean. I love it. And I love having these conversations. And I love all the people that I get to meet is just so incredible when you open up to this journey and it becomes a discovery and, a curiosity instead of trying to fix something. So I love this part of the journey and I welcome you to it. Today's guest, I'm really excited to share with you, Natalie Schlute. Welcome, Natalie.
Thank you, Carrie. I'm so excited to be here today with you and your audience.
I'm really excited you're here. So Natalie and I had such a beautiful connection because as you're about to find out, she's extremely empathic and intuitive, and she can feel all the stuff that's coming up. She felt all my ascended masters as I was calling them in, and so it's pretty cool stuff we're about to experience. So Natalie is an intuitive life coach and a law of attraction expert. She helps women manifest the life of their dreams by following their intuition and breaking down their limiting beliefs. And her own personal journey led to her from feeling lost, depressed, and struggling with chronic health issues to creating her dream business, attracting her soulmate husband, and experiencing abundance in her health and finances. She has an online course and a group coaching program, Step Into Your Power Academy, as well as one-on-one coaching clients and distance energy healing. So you can find tons of free content in her Facebook group, YouTube channel, podcast, and on Instagram, and all of those links are in the show notes. And so let's get started with just understanding who this amazing woman is, Natalie. Tell us, a little bit about your journey to discovering all of these things about yourself.
Oh gosh, I feel like it's been such a long journey. The first half of my life, I really felt like life was happening to me. I had no awareness of the fact that we could choose our own thoughts, we could choose our own emotions, and based off of the thoughts and emotions we choose, that determines our quality of life and what we draw in and attract to us. And so as a child, being extremely empathic, coming from a very large family, I have 4 sisters, and my parents were very young when they had the 5 of us. I could feel everyone's emotions in the entire household. And when you have that many people, there's going to be a lot of conflict. There's going to be a lot of arguments. Everyone is wanting attention, needing attention. Everyone wants their voice heard. And so there was just a lot of conflict that I experienced. And what I didn't realize as a child was that I was experiencing life so differently than my siblings. Some of them, the emotion, the fighting, the arguments, none of it affected them. They weren't empathic. They didn't have that same ability to feel the vibrations of everything that was going on in the household. And so as the second oldest and being an extremely intuitive, empathic person, I ended up becoming kind of the mediator of the family, the one who was always trying to fix everything and make sure everyone was okay, and take on this role as a child of trying to be the one to fix and stop all the chaos, right? Because I could feel when there was chaos and it just overwhelmed me. And then my pattern was I would reflect. I would constantly relive in my mind and in emotions all of the traumas, all of the fights, all of the arguments, all the things that happened. And so I was perpetuating my own inner negative cycle. And that led me to not expressing myself. I didn't want to make waves. So I kind of stifled my own voice and my own authenticity in order to create peace and be the peacekeeper of the household. And later on, as I got older into my teens and in my early 20s, it became an even bigger struggle. My family, my younger sister started doing drugs, and then I started doing drugs, and there was a lot of stuff happening, and I got into a really big, deep depression in my teen years. I had a relationship, my boyfriend of 3 years in high school, 3.5 years. It was a very manic relationship. We both had our own traumas, which was why we were drawn together, but then we created traumas with each other, great highs, but also great lows. And so there was a lot that I struggled with mentally and emotionally. And I think from the outside, people looked at me as, gosh, she's doing so great. She's always getting good grades. She's, dancing and acting and always in the advanced classes. But inside, I was really struggling. Things started to manifest as chronic pain from the time I was 12 years old. By the time I was in my late teens, my junior and senior year of high school, I was experiencing massive migraines to the point where I was going to the hospital. I was literally shaking, convulsing, vomiting from how much physical pain I was experiencing. I was going into a deep depression. I was at that point just so overwhelmed by life. And from the time I was about 18 or 19, there was an entire year where I smoked pot 3 times a day. I don't even remember that year. I was trying to cover up all the pain that I was experiencing because I didn't know how to deal with it. And I felt like I just couldn't handle it. And I got to the point where I literally felt like I was going crazy. And I knew that I was made for more. There was more out there. There was a way to overcome this. And the only way was to stop all of that and to actually face my fears and face my emotions head on. And so that was really the first, breaking point in my life of, I have to get my shit together. Like I can't keep doing this and I can't keep living this way. And so I left home. I moved to LA, I grew up in Carpinteria or Santa Barbara area. So just moved a few hours away, but I had to separate myself from my family. I had to go figure out who I was and find myself. And so through my 20s, it was an entire decade of just inner work. Right. I was reading book after book, spiritual book, learning about myself, doing all of the inner work. I was attempting to heal my gut. I had a lot of digestive issues, which was really a product of the emotional baggage that I was holding on to, just this tension and vibration in my body. And so my 20s was a lot of learning and growing and digging deep into my past traumas and reframing, doing all that inner work. And it slowly started to build on itself. And over time, I ended up finding ways to heal from the inside out. There's so many modalities out there. There's so many ways that we can heal. And I found the things that really helped the most, from trial and error, from doing everything under the sun, energy work and mindset work, by healing my gut and bettering my digestive system, all of those things. I actually went to school originally for dance, but I had so many injuries and so much chronic pain that I shifted into athletic training, which is very much like a physical therapist, working specifically with athletes. And I specialize in working with dancers. And even working one-on-one for 6 years with dancers, as a career, I found that a lot of people's pain wasn't because they fell and smacked their knee and there was a physical injury. A lot of the chronic stuff I was finding was, yes, we could work on the tissue and we could work on, the physical imbalances of the body, but a lot of it was coming from emotional stuff, from stress, low-grade stress that we are all holding onto in our life. And through the process of working with other people and healing other people, I also started working on the side with all of my inner work, right? I was getting coaching from a metaphysician. I started working with a psychic. I started opening myself up to all of these things that I had been suppressing for so long. I think I was always intuitive, but I didn't understand it as a young person. I didn't want to always listen to what my intuition was telling me because it wasn't the answer I wanted to hear. And sometimes I just thought I was making things up. But as I started to open up spiritually, some amazing things happened. As I was working on people's physical bodies, I started picking up a lot of intuitive impressions. I realized I could feel their emotions. I could see colors and energy moving inside their body. I could actually pick up psychic impressions of situations that they have been in. And I could feel and hear messages of what they were going through. And that actually helped me heal people in a different way. Not everyone was open to hearing those messages. So I had to be, mindful of how I went about working with people. But I learned that there's so much more to our own inner healing than just, going to a physical therapist for a physical injury, or there's just, it goes so much deeper. It goes really deep into our beliefs. So all of this kind of rolled over and manifested into me wanting to help more people with some of their own traumas, to help them become the best version of themselves. So It led me to getting certified as a life coach, doing hypnotherapy, becoming certified in hypnotherapy, and then also NLP, which is neuro-linguistic programming, where you learn how the subconscious mind works and how that affects your body, every cell in your body, your emotions, and how you can shift your beliefs so that you open yourself up to letting go of the beliefs, the thoughts, the past, the traumas, or even the future worries that no longer serve you. Learning how to reframe all of that so you let it go. And then reprogramming your own mind and body so that you become empowered. You step into that greatest version of yourself, the higher self that is already there, always waiting for you to just listen and pay attention. Your intuition is always giving you nudges. And so through all of this work and doing a deep dive into law of attraction, I was able to completely turn my life around. Now at 35 years old, I've reduced my chronic pain, digestive issues, and migraines by about 90% of what it was a decade ago, which is huge. There's always a little more work to do, but I'm so committed to healing myself. And as I continue to show up as more of my authentic self, it's like there's this instant healing with others that I work with my online, my one-on-one coaches and my coaching clients. As you work on yourself, you influence everyone around you. So it's this really beautiful process of, as we unveil and let go of what we no longer need in our life, which is usually the thoughts and the emotions that just don't serve us, we're able to step into this greater power that we all have. It's always there. And often we're just not recognizing it. And so I guess that's kind of my long story of how everything has evolved over the years, but it's been quite a journey. I feel like I've done a complete 180 in my life, and it's just on the up and up. And I think there's always more to grow and to learn and to expand, but it's a really beautiful process when you get over that hump of whatever you're experiencing, whether it's trauma, emotions, chronic pain, depression, all of that. When you get to the point where you hit that tipping point, life really becomes a beautiful experience. And I now realize that I am in complete control, and everyone is in complete control of their own happiness, their own joy, and the potential to have a really beautiful quality of life.
Oh, that's so beautiful. I love everything you said. I mean, it's so powerful because when before you wake up to that realization that you are in control, or that you have ability to influence your life, you kind of feel like a victim to everything,
Mm-hmm.
and there is that tendency to want to hide. I know that it was such a reminder to me when you were talking about how sensitive you are, and how you needed to get away from your family to find yourself. Because my son's going through that right now. He's going to be 21 in like a month or so, 2 months. And so he's so sensitive and so psychic and so aware, like it's hard for him to find himself in the middle of all of this energy in this house. Because, there's me and I've got big energy, but guess what? So does my partner. So do our other family members, like we're like the house of big energy. So, it is kind of hard to find your own voice with all of that going on. And I know I struggle with it too, just being so sensitive and being so aware. And even though like people might not be speaking directly to me or interacting with me directly, the fact that I can feel everything happening in the entire house when there's a bunch of people in here is a lot. It's a lot just by itself, like without anybody interacting with anybody. Like just the fact that everyone's in the house, is a
Mm-hmm.
lot. I can feel it when nobody's here. It's so peaceful. And then everybody comes back, and I love everybody, but it's also like overwhelming to me because I can really feel everybody's presence. So how do you, what were some of the things you learned as you isolated yourself? Like what was the journey like that to look like? Because I know you must spend time with your family now. So what was that journey like to make it, and is it easier for you now to be around them is the other question. What did you learn? What was that process, and is it easier now?
It was a really interesting process. And I don't believe everyone has to leave home in order to figure themselves out. For me, when I was 19, that's just where I was. I was in such a deep depression. I felt so confined, and I felt as if every little thing I did, there was 7 other opinions about everything on me. And having that judgment, when you have that many girls in your household, that's just how it is, right? We're judgy. It's just kind of in
Did you
nature.
perceive it? Did you perceive the judgment as like on your energetic field, like on your consciousness field? Did you feel it like kind of on you and hard to shake off?
I did. And, back then I didn't understand that concept, but that is what I felt. And I think as an empath, those of us that are very intuitive and we feel a lot, the difference now is before I would feel it and then I would take it in, I would hold on to it like it was my security blanket, or, oh my God, I have to figure out, why do I feel this way? Why do I feel this way? And you just have this chokehold, and then you repeat that pattern. You hold that vibration so tightly that then it becomes a part of your natural pattern. And I had done that for 19 years living with my family. It was a pattern that I had, that I was holding on to not only my own pain and my own turmoil, but I was holding on to all of their pain. I was holding on to all of the negative energy when they were on drugs and when I was on drugs and when we were fighting and angry. Like, I internalized it and I held it. And for me, I felt at that point in my life, 16 years later, it's a very different story. But at that point in my life, I felt like I needed to break free because I didn't know who I was anymore. I was so attached to everyone else's emotions. Now I'm at the point where I'm very good at differentiating what's my emotions and what what I'm picking up from other people. It takes some practice, but it's really just a practice in awareness. And so I can recognize when I'm feeling someone else's vibration, and I make a conscious choice now to just let it go, to let it move through me instead of holding on to it, maintaining that vibration. It's really about, to make that shift from feeling overwhelmed, from feeling like the life is happening to you and all these emotions are happening to you and you're just overwhelmed and don't know what to do. You must shift your awareness to being conscious of, who do I want to be? How do I want to think? How do I want to feel? And then train yourself to think and feel that way every single day. And you get very clear on, okay, this is how I want Natalie to show up for life. And I'm going to master this version of Natalie, this happy version, this optimistic version, this version that knows that I can accomplish anything. It doesn't matter how long it takes, but God is always on my side. My angels are always guiding me. You learn how to master your own vibration. And then it becomes very clear when someone else walks in the room with their heavy energy and you're picking that up and you're like, okay, now I get you. I understand you. Maybe I can help support you in this area. And I'm just going to allow that to move through. I'm just not going to hold on to it like I used to. And sometimes it's as simple as asking your intuition, if you're getting a little confused, is this my energy? Is what I'm feeling right now me, or is it someone else? And often you will either hear their name or you will see a picture of their face if it's someone else, or just have an instant knowing, oh shoot, I picked this up from so-and-so. And then you can choose, I'm just going to let it go. I'm going to let it move through, and I'm going to come back into my own space and a vibration that I know I want to hold for myself. So it's this pattern of awareness and shift, awareness and shift. And honestly, the biggest thing that has helped me is just learning to let go of, not only other people's energy, but letting go of traumas from the past, emotions and vibrations that I used to memorize and hold on to that became my normal. I've learned how to flush that out and now master a new way of living. And then also not to project into the future or over amplify, things that I'm experiencing, especially nowadays with what's been going on with COVID. It is so easy to take in everything that's going on in the news, to walk outside and be so scared that you have to put a mask on, which, by the way, they don't do anything. Like, science shows that masks don't actually protect you from anything. And the death numbers are going down, even though the numbers are going up. It's just because more people are being tested. There's just this whole fear mentality that's happening. And we can choose to let our mind wander and spiral in a negative direction, and then keep repeating those vibrations and that energy and emotion in our body, so that, we end up feeling like experiencing fear every day. Or we can wake up and realize, hey, I don't want to feel that way. I'm going to consciously choose to do a little research, get some clarity on what's really happening. I'm going to choose to think more positively, to maintain my own space and vibration, to create some boundaries around what you're actually taking in, and then choose to master who you really want to be and how you want to show up every day. It's really about letting go of the things that don't serve you, and then choosing to master what you really do want to feel and how you really do want to show up for your life. This too shall pass. Like, I know this has been lasting a really long time, longer than anything I've ever experienced in my lifetime. We're living in a pretty epic time in history right now. but we all have a choice of how we are going to show up for what's going on. You can either let your external circumstances control you and blame it. Oh, this is COVID's making me feel this way. My roommate's making me feel this way. You know, I can't get clarity because there's too much going on in my household. Or you can stop being that victim, which I was a victim for the far majority of my life. You know, that was my pattern of being the victim to my external circumstances. Or you can take control. And the only thing you can take control of is how you show up, how you feel, the thoughts you choose, the emotions you choose, the perspective that you choose to come from. And, you know, do a lot of inner questioning. Is this the end all be all? Like, how can I shift my thoughts? How can I shift my emotions in this moment? And just day by day, moment by moment, choose a better thought, choose a better emotion, choose to step away, take a few deep breaths, and come back to whatever situation you're experiencing with a little more clarity, a little more perspective, instead of being so attached to the patterns that we've created for decades in our life.
Yeah, it's really tricky business rewiring those patterns so that you're not constantly trying to battle them. But I've gone through so many different iterations on ways to handle it, but lately my solution is to feel it to heal it. So I just I let it pass through me. I'm like, okay, there's that. I don't attach a story to it. I just feel it. I let it expand. I give it its space. Okay, like move through me, you know. Like I just imagine almost like something got touched, like some deep place got touched, and then it's just like letting loose like a pocket of hot air. It's just like, oh, okay, there it goes. Now it's letting out. Okay, I'm not going to clamp it down while it's releasing. And then I just kind of let it move through and out, you know. And then I go, okay, well, that's done, whatever that was, you know. It's like I don't need any more to like go understand like where it was. That was my pathway to begin with. Like I had a pathway of like, oh, I need to understand exactly what trauma this was so that I can know that that got healed, or like what child self am I dealing with, what past life, what, you know, all that thing. Now I'm like, yeah, that's just another story. It's nice. It's a great pathway when you first get started because it's like makes it intriguing to do the work. But now I'm just like, yeah, it's just a pocket of energy. Like it just needed to go. It's gone. It released. Cool. I don't even know why. It doesn't matter. It moved through. And now because that moved through, like I noticed as I've been doing this practice, like probably the last year and a half or two, it's like now I have so much more inner resiliency. It's really interesting how I'm not intimidated by the feelings anymore. I'm not intimidated by, you know, I don't need to figure it out. It's like it just moves through, it expands. I allow it. And then I'm on the other side of it and I'm stronger. Like I just don't have that kind of trigger anymore. It's so interesting.
That's, you know, it's so funny. Everything you just said is exactly my experience too.
Oh,
You know,
wow. That's so cool.
that's how I live now. You know, in my 20s, and for the majority of my 20s, probably all of my 20s, I really focused on, okay, what are my limiting beliefs? What are my past traumas? Let's do the inner child work. Let's do all this emotion code stuff and all these things. And yes, I made progress. Of course I made progress. And I think, like you mentioned in the beginning, it's nice to do that because the cognitive, logical, analytical side of the mind needs to have a reason and a rationale and an understanding of why do I feel this way? And then I need to pinpoint, you know, point in my childhood and, oh, this happened and this happened. But in reality, what it is, it's a bunch of vibrations, right? And it's not just one moment that caused this vibration. It's like all these moments of your life where you repeated that vibration. So we just kind of, we pick up energy and it keeps adding and adding and adding. And, you know, doing all the inner work, I think there is some really great value to it. But at a certain point, we do need to let go of all the stories and just be like, you know what, I'm done with the stories.
It's just energy. It's just
energy. That's all it is.
It's an old pattern in my brain, you know, and some of it's pre-verbal because some of my trauma was pre-verbal. So that's why this is my thought, my reason why I think energy healing worked better for me is because it's pre-verbal. So like psychotherapy is all verbal. It's all mental and verbal. So you go sit on the couch, but if you're dealing with something that's has no words, like the aspect of you that's holding on to this story or that had that experience has no words, how is it going to communicate through your mind and through your mouth? It can't. It's an emotion. It's just, and it's sometimes these emotions are like, indescribable. Like they are so complex. Like they have so much, like just think about what a baby feels if its mom isn't around and it's scared. Like it doesn't have like a rational thought. It has like a bunch of feelings and sensations that we, if we pulled it all apart, we could probably assign words to each one of those things, but really it's just a huge tangled mess, you know?
Mhm.
And that's what we're healing. That's what I
Yes.
realized. We're healing that.
Hmm.
That's like, you can't put words to all of that. You just have to experience it and let it, like, it's uncomfortable for sure, but then it moves and it's gone.
Yeah. And I think that is really where the deep healing happens, when we get out of our mind, when we get out of the words, the logic, the everything else. And one of the biggest healers for me was having a meditation practice. Once I started my meditation practice and I got really consistent with it over the last several years, that is what opened me up to being so hyper aware of my energetic system, my emotional system. And as I practiced quieting my mind, I was suddenly able to tap into the subtle shifts, not only the energy within my body, but outside of my body. I was suddenly able to pick up energy information from other people, other lifetimes, past life stuff. All of a sudden, I'm communicating with angels and spirit guides and all these things because I'm no longer in my head. I'm like hanging out in the energetic field instead. And that's where all of your intuitive impressions come from. That's where all that divine guidance comes from. So when you step outside of all the stories and the logic and just get out of your head, we have such a strong society of just constantly being in our mind, constantly analyzing, and that, man, that repetition of thoughts, it just, we think 50 to 70,000 thoughts a day, and upwards of 90% or more of those thoughts are the exact same thoughts you thought yesterday and the day before and the day before and the day before. So you just have to get out of those patterns.
People
We have.
don't realize that that's going on. I didn't
Yeah.
know, I didn't realize that I had so much mental chatter going through most of my life. Like it was just normal, right? So I didn't know it
Yeah.
could be any other way. And then I did an ayahuasca ceremony. And I remember I had to take extra because my brain was so freaking busy. I couldn't quiet down. And so
Mm-hmm.
I took a second, like a little extra to help, because they offered it. And I was like, okay. And then what happens when you do that is you're up way longer than everybody else, because then it kicks in and then you're like, you're blown out while everybody else is sleeping. That's what happened for me. I'm lying there trying to sleep because everybody else is sleeping. And I'm trying to go to sleep and there's just chatter in my head. And it's so loud. It's like a megaphone in my mind. I'm lying there. It's all quiet everywhere. And my mind is like a megaphone. And it's just like, it's going on and on and on and saying all this stuff. And I'm like, can something make this stop? Shut up. And it went, and there was silence for
Mm.
like the first time in my life, Natalie.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing.
When you get silent, you realize how loud it was.
Mm-hmm. And we get so identified with that voice. We don't, for most of the far majority, I feel like everything I'm saying is the far majority of my life. And it really was, because it was like that for so long, is I didn't know that up until, my 20s and maybe even into my mid 20s, that I was the thinker behind that voice. So most people don't realize that they are separate from the voice in their head, right? That internal dialogue. If you're identified with that internal dialogue and every thought you think you take as truth, oh, you are in for so much trouble, so much stress, so much worry, so much fear, and so many negative repetitive patterns of lack of self-worth, and I have to earn my love, and all these things that make us feel really crappy. But when you realize that, hey, that voice, that's just like a TV program that's
It's like
been
a
running on
tape.
repeat. Yeah, that's really all it is. And when you can step back and just look at it and be like, whoa, I don't want to be playing that that TV show
Turn
anymore
the
in my mind.
station.
Let's switch the station. You can actually get quiet and separate from that, and you can consciously choose to shift. And that's really what the great awakening is for all of us, is to realize that we are this beautiful higher soul that is not equivalent to the language that we speak. it is energy, it is feeling, it is emotion, it is something so much greater. And when you can quiet the mind and when you can step away from it and just watch the mind, those practices right there just open you up to a completely new reality of what is possible for you and how you can experience life and how you can evolve on such a different level.
You can hold presence. Like when you
Mm-hmm.
were just speaking, it's so different. Like I'm trying to relate to how I was before I had this experience and everything changed. Before, I would have been trying to listen to you and what you were saying, but then I would have all these distracting thoughts happening the entire time I'm listening to you that were pulling me away from actually hearing what you were saying. Almost like
Mm-hmm.
it felt like I was down underneath me. Like my eyes are up here, but I'm like down here trying to just get up there so I can like look out, you know? Do you know what I'm saying? like
Yeah.
like I had this feeling like I was trying to like climb my way up so I could look out the window of my eyes, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like I was kind of underneath somewhere like in an ocean, like, wait, I'm down here. And
Mm-hmm.
you know, and then there was all this like friction and noise happening up here. So this process has been more like getting myself like in my eyes. Like I'm actually seeing you, hearing you. I can hear everything you said. There was quiet in here as I'm hearing you. And even there's that pause, right? I can
Mm-hmm.
pause and there's an extension and there's no thought while we're waiting for the next thing.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah,
And
it's like, wow, how great is that?
it's a beautiful thing to be present.
Yeah.
And when you're identified with your thoughts and you're identified with that dialogue, you are not present. Like I wasn't present until like the last 5-10 years
Me
of my
too.
life. I really wasn't. And it's so different being able to shut that off and actually be present with someone, because like you said, and this is I think most people, and I don't think most people are even aware that they're doing it because it's just such a pattern. Like I had no idea that's what I was doing, that I was constantly in this dialogue. But if someone else is speaking to you, the most common thing for people to do is to have that inner dialogue going while someone else is speaking. Oh, they're judging what you're saying, they're judging how you look, they're judging the things that you come up with, they're relating it to their own past experiences. Oh yeah, I had something similar. And all these things are happening and they're not really just
While you're talking.
while the person in front of you is talking. All these things are happening, but like you said, instead you can show up and just actually listen, like not have the dialogue, and just feel what they're saying and hear what they're saying and take it in with all your senses, and have such a deeper connection and a deeper experience, not only with just, you know, an interview, but with your children, with your husband, your wife, your friends, your family. When you learn how to be present, whew, the quality of your life changes. It's no longer this like stamp of this pattern. It's I am here right now. And that's what life is really about. Like
And
that's really
it's
the greatest gift.
surrender. It's totally
Mm-hmm.
surrender because like the thing is like if you had something to say, like as you were sharing, a few things, you know, kind of went like this and I just let them go. I was like, if it's
Mm-hmm.
irrelevant, it'll come back. You know, it'll come right back through because if it's relevant, then in my turn to speak or whatever, it'll just come out of my mouth, you know. I
Mm-hmm.
don't need to like remember it or hold on to that or like cuz I used to do that. I in conversations I remember I used to hold on to what people, oh, there was a point I wanted to make. Okay, I'm like trying to hold this on. I'm trying to hold on to this here and like listen to you at the same time, but I'm still holding like half of my attention's over here on this thing that I think I want to say. Well, who so
Mm-hmm.
what? Like it'll come back around. So it's like there's a certain amount of trust that, you know, anything that's arising for you, if it's relevant to the conversation, there'll be an opening and it'll just fly right out your mouth and you won't need to think about it. You don't have to like plan it or make sure or track it. It'll just happen. You don't have to orchestrate or control it. And that lets you be present. Like, you know, you're talking about intuition. Intuition's really listening, right? Like it's deep listening, it's deep presence.
Yeah, it's listening with every cell in your body, with every molecule. That's really what it is. Your intuition is allowing yourself to be in a space where you are just receiving. You're again, you got to quiet that dialogue. You have to quiet the like holding on to all these things and the stress and the vibration. You just surrender and let go, and you allow things in. And as you practice being in that state, it starts to become much more natural. I do teach people like an intuitive questioning process that allows them to tap into their intuition, know what it feels like, and be able to pick up different experiences. Because sometimes I think you need a little bit of an exercise, right? Like you need to work out in order to be fit. There are some exercises that can help people to get into that state and to be receptive. And then the fun part is once it becomes a part of you, then it naturally happens more frequently throughout the day. You just start to receive things, and then you can call at will, some intuitive answers when you need that guidance in that moment throughout the day. You're like, oh, I need to figure out this or whatever it is. It becomes this beautiful dance and relationship with your intuition, which is really just a relationship with the energy of everything in existence.
Yeah, and everything in existence, and also it's the nuances. Like
Mm-hmm.
if it's more quiet inside of you, like inside your body, like your brain, your body, your emotions, if you've been holding presence in meditation like you're talking about with all of this stuff in here, then all this stuff in here kind of quiets down because you're paying attention to it. Finally, it doesn't have to be so loud, so it quiets down, and then you can get into nuance. And nuance is like, nuance opens up oceans of information, right? I mean, like when we're talking, I know, because I could feel you feeling me. So that's the coolest thing, is I could feel her feeling me. So like as you're feeling me, like if my attention wanders a little bit, I actually notice that you pull in and you're like, oh, that brought in another influence, and I can feel you feeling that influence, and then like we're staying in the conversation. But
Mm-hmm.
it's like really nuanced. Like I thought about my son, and I know you were like, ooh, there's, so that came through. Oh, I wonder what is going on over there. So it's like this. So there is like this way that like the consciousness is like that already. It's just that we're not aware of it, right? Like the consciousness is all connected. We're all connected collectively. Like if we think about somebody at some level, they know we're thinking about them, right? But at a higher level, but we can actually nuance that down to right here in this moment
Mm-hmm.
through
Yeah.
intuition practice.
I just have to say, Carrie, I have never interacted with someone like you, where like you and we can both feel each other's energy. Like you can feel me reaching out and touching the energy of your son in that moment. And you were fully aware of it. And it's just something that kind of happens with me. And I just do it naturally. My energy just reaches out and pulls and just touches the information, just touches that vibration. And I can feel these things. And I think it is so freaking awesome that you can feel that at the same moment. And I
Well, I
think
was
when
feeling you doing
you
that, and
have,
I was like, oh, what's he telling you? Like all psychically as you were doing that, I was like, oh, okay, what's he saying to you? Is he okay?
yeah,
He's doing all right.
I'm not used
I
to
think he's
people
kind of
calling
mad
me
at
out
me,
and feeling
you know?
it. Like no one ever knows I'm doing that, except you're the first person that's been like, oh, Natalie, I can feel you reaching out into the ethers. I'm like, oh, no one, like I just do it. And most people aren't aware that I'm doing it. So that was really awesome. And as you were speaking, there was one thought that came up, an analogy that I think might give people some clarity. I always like to use the picture of a fish in the ocean, right? It's like we are the fish in the ocean and we're in this sea of energy. A fish that's deep in the ocean, it doesn't know that there's anything outside that ocean. Like it doesn't realize it's in water because it's completely surrounded by it. It's engulfed in it. That water is flowing in and out of its body all the time. And that's how we are as energetic beings as well. We are sitting in a sea of energy. We are like, there is no separation between us or anything in the universe. And I loved when you started speaking about getting still and quiet, because if you can imagine a river, like a fast moving river that's just got rocks and it's tumultuous and it's moving on. If you try to throw a pebble in that river, you can't see the splash. It's so hard to decipher what's going on, like that's the intuition, like giving you information in the universe, and all of that is coming to you, but you can barely feel it and notice it because there's so much craziness happening. But if you had a still lake or a still river where it almost looks like glass, and then you threw a pebble in, all of a sudden you see the ripple, you see the effect, you feel it, you can experience it so much more. And that's what happens when we get quiet, when we tap into the energetic field, because suddenly we're so aware of those fine-tuned little shifts. We create this hyper awareness of all those energetic nuances that you were mentioning. And I think for people that maybe are still working on conceptualizing this, maybe that visual might help to see what energy is really like and how it flows and how it shifts and how our thoughts and emotions can create this rippling river, making it difficult to tap into these higher levels of
I
intuitive
actually love that. I really love that metaphor, and I want to add to it.
yes.
So, okay, here's what I'll contribute to that, is that all humans get crusty because we get conditioned, and then we have this crust that forms around our senses, and we crust ourselves off from feeling and from our hearts and everything, because we just like, we can't deal with it because it's overwhelming. It's that choppy sea, it's that choppy river, and we're like, oh, so we crust so we don't have to feel all that. So in order to really open up your gifts, though, of your intuition, you've got to uncrust. So as you uncrust by practicing, being present with your uncomfortable emotions, like we were talking about, that removes some crust like flakes off and dissolves. And then, you practice like being still and quiet, and then things come up and you just practice letting it go. Then some crust flakes off. You learn how to manage your energy body, and you clear your chakras or whatever, then some crust flakes off. So all of those things, yoga, breathing, like just whatever the things are that you're doing towards consciousness, they all like flake off a little bit of that crust, right? And then the more that the crust flakes off, the more nuances you can perceive, because you're not as crusty. So you have more nuance. It doesn't have to be so much like a 2x4. It can be like a pebble. So, then you get in the flow. It is more vulnerable. It's more vulnerable because you are going to sense and perceive a lot more information, and it requires more mastery, because like you were saying, like a lot of people don't know that you can tap into just anybody on the planet. Like you can completely tap into anybody on the planet and touch their field and like check out what they're doing, and like it's possible. Should you though? Like then that's the next question, like is that in right relationship, right? And it's so tempting because we all want to know what's going on with that other person. Like, I seriously want you to spy on my son, but but is that appropriate, right? Because it's like, is it really my business? So it's kind of like we're moving into an age where psychic ability is like the next level. Like you wouldn't just roll up on somebody's house and like open the door and walk in, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we have this. So now we have to deal with all this. But it's cool. It's really cool. But it's another layer of discernment and responsibility and integrity and all the whole stuff. It's like really tricky that way, because we have to now relate, because we had the 3D version, and now we're moving into this ephemeral version, which it just seems so nuanced and it's so easy. And for those of us that are really opening up to this, but then there's like responsibility, right? Like, anyway, what are your thoughts on that? Because that just came through for me. Because I think my guys are like, be very careful, because they could tell that I was like, oh, I'm going to talk to Natalie after and see if she can tell me what's going on with my son.
Oh,
And then my
so
guys
funny.
are like telling me,
it is an interesting subject that you mentioned, because it actually came up in a conversation with my sister and my husband just this last week about some of that stuff. I do believe that we need to respect other people's boundaries. I am not the type of person to go in and influence someone else's energy field. I just don't feel comfortable with that. First of all, you need permission.
you need
Right?
permission.
Like
Yeah.
you really do need permission. And I just feel like if I were to invade someone else's energetic space without permission, what kind of karma is that bringing on me? There's a co-creation there too, right? Like, what is that going to do for me in the long run? Is that going to create a karma where someone else might come and invade my energetic field and deplete something in me? Or, I don't want to be creating that. Like, when it comes to the law of attraction, what you put out into the world is also what you get back. So if you, in this work, and I feel like the far majority of people that are doing a lot of energy work are in a beautiful heart space, right? We're doing this because we love it, we feel it, we can express it, and we really want to help other people feel as amazing as we feel and have the healing experiences that we have had, because we know how amazing it is to go from deep depression and manic cycles to being free, to being unchained and unlocked from all that weight, all that crust that we've been holding on to for so long. And so it's a touchy subject. I I have come across people that, I've worked with and then found out later they were doing some of those things. And I was like, oh, wow, I didn't realize that they were going into other people's energy field without permission. And you have to stay in integrity with what is right for you. And I just truly believe that that's, I don't know.
It's a navigation. I think we're all navigating this now
Yeah.
because we are raising up human consciousness. And so these are just some of the considerations we'll have as we get more psychic as a collective.
Mm-hmm.
Is we'll just, we'll be unfolding to make new agreements with each other about it.
Yeah.
Definitely, I think we can all agree that performing a healing on somebody that hasn't asked for it is not appropriate.
Yeah.
And however, like, is it appropriate? Like, can you even help? Like, if I start talking about my son, like his energy just comes into the space and then there he is. You can't help like becoming aware of things because he's right there and you can feel his energy because I'm bringing it in and I'm connecting with him and that energy is coming through. So I don't think there's anything wrong with that part,
Mm-hmm. I don't think there's anything wrong with that part either. I feel like just as if you were to walk into a room and meet like 5 new people, it's the same thing. You're just feeling their energy, and we can express what we're experiencing. And that's what actually makes us good at being coaches and healers, because we can feel people's energy. And so then we know how to shift and kind of create that polar opposite that will help balance their energy. And so that's why we're so good at what we do. I think, maybe the thoughts that I was thinking was, I found out that there was a psychic who was actually going into other people's energy field and then strategically pulling people into their life and manipulating things.
Oh, that's
And
terrible. Yeah.
yeah, so
No,
that
no.
was what I was referring to. But I think it's almost like you can't avoid, if someone brings up a name, and like you were saying with your son, when you bring up your son and you think of him, I can't stop feeling what comes up when you
Right,
bring
because
him in,
his
because
energy came in and you're like, oh, there's that
I'm like,
energy.
oh, okay. I notice it and I feel it. And
Yeah.
it's like that when you become very sensitive to this stuff. And this kind of down a slightly similar path there, I feel like there's a lot of people that talk about self-protection. And I feel like we feel what we feel. When you try to put up these walls, it's like adding layers of crust. Like, oh my God, I have to protect myself from all these energies. But instead, I think what comes down to, as you start to open yourself up energetically, you're going to feel what you're going to feel. And the second you put up a wall or like a protection kind of thing, you're actually holding a tightening vibration, right? You're constricting yourself. So instead of doing that, allow yourself to feel it. But like you mentioned earlier, allow yourself to surrender and let it go. And as long as you're really clear with your own energy system and maintaining your space, that's all the protection you need. It's whether we allow other people to strongly influence and throw us off our vibration long term. It's one thing if, hey, we get into an argument or we're in a room and it gets a little crazy and you're like, oh, I feel frazzled. Okay, go step out and like do your work, whether it takes a few minutes or an hour, whatever, just get back to your normal. I think it's more so how long we hold on to those vibrations, how long we allow them to like throw us off. That's really where the protection comes in. It's just a practice in managing some of that too.
Yeah, and it's a practice in becoming aware of conscious connections we form with other people.
Mm-hmm.
And, for me, my path is shamanic, so I'll bring in allies to help me with that. So I bring in tobacco to help, or sage to help clear energy. If I'm feeling like I need a little more support, then I'll carry a stone ally. Like I always wear this stone at my throat, that kind of thing. So I just like, okay, that just supports me in more tuning into my vibration and being full in my space and feeling like I can occupy my space, my natural size, whatever that is, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
being my size. And then from that space, I can be grounded and then the channel opens and it's just like, very clear. But on the way to getting where I am now, it's been a lot of journey of feeling like I needed to shield and protect and clear and cut cords. And like, there's been a lot of that kind of stuff. And now I
Mm-hmm.
think maybe it's just sort of, it integrates in a way that you don't have to think about it so much, like driving a car, like you just
Mm-hmm.
naturally, your body just takes care of that. So you don't have to keep thinking about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And again, I did all that too. I did all the cord cutting, and I feel like it's a part of a lot of our journeys when we go into that spiritual world. Like we do all these little practices and they all uncrust us little bits at a time and they help, and they're these beautiful tools. And then it starts to evolve into more of a flow. Like the river just starts flowing a little more fluidly as you advance your practice. And it just becomes such a part of you that it happens almost seamlessly instead of so much effort of like, oh, I got to do A, B, and C to make this happen. It's just, you just do it.
That's gorgeous.
Yeah.
Totally, totally true. So how can people get started with you if they want to try out working with you, Natalie?
If you go to my website, natalieschlute.com, you can set up an appointment. We can do some one-on-one coaching right away. I do have a lot of online content, YouTube, podcast. I'm on Instagram and got a Facebook group. And it just depends on what people are looking for. You know, one-on-one coaching is probably the fastest way to up-level your life because you're getting one-on-one feedback. But I also do have an online course with some group coaching. So if people are looking for more of like an education in how to start transforming, how to set goals, how to do the inner work, how to reprogram their mindset, how to shift their emotions and follow their intuition, I have, you know, a course that takes them through the education as well as some group coaching sessions too. I also do healings as well, some Reiki energy work where we can go into your energy field and look at what's going on and start to shift some of that. So it just depends on what you're looking for. There's a variety of ways we can get started. But I'd also love to offer your audience my free 3-part video series called Develop Your Intuition to Manifest Your Ideal Life. So it's kind of a mini course where you get some practical steps of what I did every day for a year to master my intuition, like just this really short, quick, intuitive questioning process so that you're able to tap into what does it feel like when my intuition says yes and no, and how can I start to evolve my questions and receive more intuitive impressions. It's a really great little practice to help open you up on a spiritual level and start connecting with that divine guidance that we all have access to. And so I'll make sure we link that up in the show notes.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that free gift. So everybody check that out. Definitely go to Natalie's website, check it out. Also go check out her podcast. I'm going to be on there, so go check it out. And so please, if you really enjoyed this podcast and you enjoyed the information you received, remember, as I always ask, please share it out. Give us a rating on iTunes or YouTube or wherever you found it. And just, you know, share it out with friends, let people know, leave a comment, because the engagement's really what helps us to reach more people with the message. And we could all use more of this kind of consciousness on the planet right now. So the more people that wake up to this, the better, is my perspective. And I hope yours too. So share it out if you enjoyed it. We appreciate you being here. And I'm going to give everybody a kiss on the way out. Would you like to help me give kisses?
Oh, of course, I would love to.
Here come your kisses, people. Okay, here they come. Mwah. Love you so much. And we'll see you next time on Soul Nectar Show. Bye for now.